Good afternoon and welcome to the City of Belleville Committee of Adjustment meeting for Thursday, February the 17th. I'm Brian Miller and I will be the chair today. Our first order of business is pecuniary interest by anyone on any of the items today. I will take that as a no. So our first application today is a minor variance and it's A422-821 Highway 62 North and the owner is John Armstrong. Is Mr. Armstrong with us today?
I don't see in the list of attendees anyone named Armstrong. There is one attendee that is just a number, so it's very difficult. I can give them permission to talk and see if that's Mr. Armstrong.
Oh.
It says they're using an older version of Zoom, and so they cannot talk.
So we don't know if Mr. Armstrong is going to be joining us or not.
Perhaps if Mr. Armstrong, if you are 060372, you could use the chat function and identify yourself. That would be great. And I do not see that effort yet, so suggest possibly moving to the next item, and maybe we can come back to Mr. Armstrong's.
Okay, we'll just leave that and then we'll go back. We're on to the next one. So in case Mr. Armstrong's having some difficulty joining us, so we'll move on to the next item, and it's an application for consent B12275 Church Street, and the owner is Manuel Pereira and the care of Tim McKinney, and the agent is RFA Planning. And is there someone from RFA Planning joining us today?
All three are in attendance. Normally, this is Andrew would make a presentation at this time. Is that consistent?
Okay, sorry, that's right. Andrew, you go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Consent file. Oh, wait. Might be
that's
frozen here.
That's Highway 62. We need 75.
Yep.
There we go.
Yep. No, I was just frozen there for a moment.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the application has been submitted for the above noted property, which is zoned R21 zone and is developed with a single detached dwelling. The application requests to add the east part of the subject land to 35 St. Paul Street. The added portion has a lot area of 266 square meters and a lot frontage of 5.83 meters. The applicant has noted a concern about road widening. Accordingly, staff has recommended to reduce the required road widening by 0.25 meters to ensure that the dwelling does not encroach on the right-of-way. I will also note that on the public notice, there was also an extra mention of an easement, which is no longer part of the application and has been removed from the scope of the application. Staff received correspondence from members of the public regarding the benefiting lands, regarding 35 St. Paul Street and the loft. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Okay, is there someone from RAF Planning joining us?
There are three representatives. I'll be promoting them all.
Okay, we'll start with RFA Planning. Carolyn, you with us?
Yes, I'm just putting my video on. There we are.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. I'm Carolyn Ross, and I'm a planner with RFA Planning Consultant here in Belleville, and the applicant, Tim McKinney, is also in attendance this afternoon. If this application looks familiar to you, it's because it's a resubmission of an application that was approved by the Committee of Adjustment in 2019. The decision lapsed because the conditions weren't met within the time frame. The application before you for the lot addition is identical to what was approved in 2019. The area is the same, the lot frontage on St. Paul Street is the same, and the benefiting lands are the same, 35 St. Paul Street. The lot addition will square off both the retained and the severed lots and will provide a rear yard and driveway access for the benefiting land. It also serves to bring the lot dimensions of 35 St. Paul Street into compliance with the zoning bylaw. The lot dimensions for the retained and the benefiting lands will comply both with the R2-1 zone. Planning comments noted that the pergola, which is located along the east lot line, is closer to the lot line than permitted in the zoning bylaw. The committee approved a minor variance for that pergola back in 2019. No changes are proposed to any of the structures located on the benefiting lands. The use of 35 St. Paul Street or the loft will continue to be a single detached unit as permitted in the R2-1 zone, and the property will be used in accordance with municipal bylaws and licensing. Any short-term rental would have to comply with short-term accommodation licensing that the city may establish. And the applicant understands that the site will not be used as event space, given that that is not a permitted use. And we support planning staff's recommendation and would be pleased to answer any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Ross? Okay, Mr. McKinney, do you have any comments?
No, I don't. I think Carolyn handled that very well.
Okay. Was there someone else that wishes to comment on 75 Church Street? I do believe a member of the public, perhaps.
Yes, that's Sandra Box. She's in the meeting and she's muted.
Sandra's there. Okay, there you are. Good afternoon, Sandra.
Good afternoon. Not sure of the processes here, so.
Just any comments that you wish to make, then go ahead.
Okay. I'm yes to business. I'm a businesswoman myself. I'm no to being invaded in my home. And that's simply, I know that Tim knows that I've had to contact him several times when the noise gets out of hand. It is close. I mean, it's half a meter from my home. And I'm wondering, like, in one place it says it'll no longer be Airbnb, which makes no sense to me. And it seems like a single dwelling, but there's quite a shed that I believe is also got bedding in there. And the noise that goes on is not acceptable. It'd be like having Empire Square open in your own residential area. And I don't think that's appropriate. I don't mind. I know that when the bass gets playing and they put the tents up and they have their parties, I don't know the answer and I don't like to be complaining, but I do want to know, how do we control the noise going forward? And then I see there's going to be a duplex that you'll be looking to have approved. On one hand, it says no more Airbnb, and on the other, it wants a duplex. How do I know that duplex doesn't become Airbnb? And I was at the beautiful, absolutely beautiful grand opening when it was opened, and it looked to be, and it was presented to be, a high-end music entertainment space where the band would come and play and then stay. That was kind of it. That's not what it's turned out to be. And I don't know how. I know I have had to rent my apartment out in the front, and 2 or 3 possible tenants, I had to warn them that there will be noise next door, and that's hardly fair. And so 2 of them said I wouldn't be able to handle that. The fellow I eventually got in says I'm a little hard of hearing, so that helps. But I truly do not know, what am I to do for the noise levels? And I don't think it's fair to bring in a party place that continues. I mean, if it's it's like having the Waterfront Festival right next to my door. That's what it's like.
maybe we can have Tim make a comment. This is just a lot addition to this property. Is that correct? And maybe what you're going to do with this additional property?
Sure. And I guess Carolyn might want to comment on the Airbnb because my understanding is the city's going to pass a bylaw to license Airbnbs. And I don't know if that's within the scope of this application, but I can tell you that, at one point I was looking at doing an event space here. And I do recognize, and I have changed course on that. So the loft will continue, in my mind, to be a single family home that can be rented subject to me getting licenses as required. Like today, there's no license required, but I've been making inquiries that if that comes into effect, I'll be first in line to get a license and to adhere to any restrictions. As far as the noise, there is a bylaw. The bylaw says 11 o'clock, past 11 o'clock, you can't have noise. And I have no intent on continuing with a band. The last band that was there, it wasn't something that I had done myself. I had rented the loft and someone else had a band. And I recognize that that's not suitable. And I'm, would agree that won't happen. So going forward, I wouldn't expect, it will not be an event space per se. The other building that we are going to be applying for a rezoning is to add a second floor to the existing one-story building. And that will be, it'll be 2 units. And I haven't determined, what's going to happen there, but it's not going to be event space. It will comply with the zoning that we get approved for.
Just a question, Tim. So this is lot addition that you're adding the property to your existing property. What is the plan for that addition? Why are we adding this to it?
So initially, the only land that the church came with is the land that the building sat on. So it was a very small piece of land. Backyard of the church is actually owned by Manuel. So we're basically squaring it off. And I've had an agreement in place to buy the other building, which includes the backyard of the loft. So I'm basically just squaring off what it should have been like in the beginning. But, back in 1867, someone granted the church to build on that piece of land, but they only gave them enough land to build the actual building on. And so the backyard, if you look at it logically, the backyard would be included, but it wasn't. So we're just trying to align things the way they should be.
Who's Manuel that you keep talking about? Tim, I understood you own the property.
Well, I own the loft, and I have an agreement to buy from Manuel. He operated the van line service.
The
to
limousine.
Yeah. So we've had an agreement in place for 3 years.
Okay.
And we have a closing that's happening very soon.
Okay.
So if that's going to be not Airbnb, but it's going to be short-term housing, or permanent people would move in as a single dwelling? I mean, there's a sauna outside, a big bar. I mean, it's a beautiful space. I'm not arguing what a beautiful space it is. It's just when they get, well, I mean, I know you came over the one time, there was just a single fellow there, but he had the outside speaker going and the noise just from that, because he was a millennial. And so you eventually just said, okay, I'm just going to disconnect the bloody thing. Thank goodness. But when they get going with their, and I can't see it not being used because it's such a beautiful space. And when they get the bass going, and I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about bass and music, we DJ'd for 11 years, and you do not need subwoofers and bass turned on, period. Absolutely do not. The reason we were successful as DJs was we turned the bass off, and there's enough bass naturally in the music so people can talk over top of it and still get the vibe.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question for Carolyn, Sandra, or Tim in the committee? Robert?
Yeah, it's more of a comment. I think Sandra, I understand what you're talking about, but really it's not in relation to what's before us today. We're being asked to look at adding a piece of property there, and there are remedies in place for you. Tim did mention bylaw about not until 11 p.m., but I also believe there's bylaw about noise decibel volume, and you certainly have at your disposal to call a bylaw officer if you feel that the sound is excessive, and they can make that determination. To ask Tim what he can do about that, if he's not in control of it, it's, he could say, yeah, I'll make sure it doesn't happen. But the moment someone is booked in there, he has no control of what they're doing. So I think we need to really focus on what our task at hand is here.
Well, I guess that was the whole point. On one place, it says no more Airbnb or I don't see it in the headlines. That I didn't know where else to turn to because I don't want to be calling people on Tim. That's silly. Tim's a good man.
Yeah.
But I don't know where to go with it. And I don't want to be calling the police. I certainly don't want my tenants calling the police. And we wouldn't have known to do the bylaw. And are you going to have the bylaw guy come? It doesn't matter whether it's 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. If the subwoofer is going that much, I can literally feel it on my heart.
Okay, but I think the matter at hand here is that we're asking to just sever a piece of property and
I
add to
understand.
that property.
I understand, but that's with the
although-
purpose of becoming a duplex. And so you can see where my concern is that you take this a step further. Where is it all going to?
Well, if they want further development of this property after it is severed and joined onto the property, then there's going to be other consultation, I'm sure, that will take place before any future development comes by. I can appreciate the fact that noise is noise is noise, but I think that get back to the matter at hand here is that all we're doing is severing a piece of property and adding it to another one. Those issues are totally outside of our scope of what we're looking at today. So I just wanted to make that comment. Now, does anyone else have any other comments that they would like to make?
Sorry, one more maybe for Tim. Do we need to address the sauna that is, it's listed here as less than a meter? It's not compliant with, as an accessory building, it's less than a meter from the property line. It's listed in our comments.
Carolyn?
Yeah.
I could address that. The sauna is very portable. It can be easily moved. And in fact, I don't even know that Tim wants to keep it on that lot anyway. I think it may be moving, but regardless, it can be easily moved away from the property line.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns about this severance today? And there's no one else that wishes to comment from the public on this one. So do we have a motion? Robert, to approve?
Yes.
Seconded by Sue Smith. And all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you
Sandra,
very much.
Tim?
Thank you.
Okay, our next application is for a consent at B222, and it's 240 Avondale Road, and the owner is Dave Brown. And Andrew, you can let us know what's happening there.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a consent application has been submitted for this property, which is zoned R23 and is vacant and is also landlocked. The application requests to sever this property into equal pieces and to add them into their neighboring counterparts along Avondale. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So we're severing off this piece of property. Now, just to be clear, are we adding it to 236 or 238 or?
Maybe I should bring this back up here.
Yeah.
So the parcel is abutting three properties on Avondale.
Right.
And so by splitting them into three pieces, they would be added to their respective neighbors. So
Okay.
the northmost piece goes to 420, the middle piece goes to 238, and the
Okay.
south piece goes to 236.
Okay, that's Makes sense now. Okay, is Mr. Brown with us?
Mr. Brown has joined us by phone, so I'm going to allow him to talk. It's a little different than promoting him, but the effect will be the same.
Nope, he's on mute there.
So, Mr. Brown, on your phone, it's usually a *6 to unmute. There we go.
There we go. Mr. Brown, you joined us?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay, do you have any questions, comments, concerns to let us know about today?
No, sir. This is just a simple landlocked piece of land I purchased from the original owner of the land before that subdivision was constructed, and with the sole intent of keeping it forested. It's pretty much tree covered right now. And over time, my two neighbors that are friends at 238 and 236 have wished or made it known to me that they would be interested in acquiring a portion of that land to ensure that it remains treed as well. And so that's really all this is. It's completely landlocked, as the staff member had noted. And it's just simply cleaning this landlocked portion up and making 3 of the yards slightly larger.
So just three lot additions and no further development or anything?
That is correct, sir.
Yeah. Okay, anybody have any questions for Mr. Brown? Yeah, it's pretty simple process. So if there's no further comments, Sue?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, and seconded by Robert. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay.
You're very welcome.
Has Mr. Armstrong joined us yet, Mark?
Sorry, I don't see a Mr. Armstrong. There's still a mystery number there. And I
Okay, well, we'll leave it to the last one. We'll proceed with the next application. We'll come back to that for the last one then. The next application is B322 Town Center Drive, and the owner is 2398513 Ontario Inc. And the agent is Watson Survey. Is someone from Watson, or Andrew, I guess you could explain first what's happening. Sorry.
Certainly. So a consent application has been submitted for a lot addition. The property is zoned development zone and is vacant. The application requests to add 1.7 hectares of the north side of the parcel to an abutting lands to the north, which will provide access to the benefiting lands by extending Roy Boulevard. The principal planner noted that there was a concern regarding the lack of alignment to Roy Boulevard. Staff's recommendation has been specified to reflect the applicant's intent to maintain the official plan policy so that there is sufficient access to the property. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So is someone from Watson joining us?
Jennifer is being promoted right now.
Hi, Jennifer from Watson Land Surveyors, just here to answer any questions. We've reviewed the report and we are in agreement with the recommendations.
Anyone have any questions for Jennifer? Bill?
Yes, through the chair to Jennifer. So Jennifer, is the purpose of this to allow the extension of Roy Boulevard through to Settlers Ridge?
Eventually, yes. So currently to the west, Settlers Ridge subdivision is continuing with phases towards this property in an easterly direction. And once this parcel here, that's along Town Center Drive, once that's developed, then Roy Boulevard will extend through it. So it will be in perfect alignment to continue through.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, concerns, comments? And is there anyone else from the public that wanted to comment?
There's a Daryl Edgett identified as the owner, but I don't see him as an attendee.
Okay, then. No further questions, comments, then a motion by Bill, moved, seconded by Robert. All in favor? Here, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go back to the first one. Our application for minor variance at A422, 8221 Highway 62 North. The owner is John Armstrong, and he may or not be joining us.
I see the hand raised of that individual. I can promote them to panelists. And with a little luck, that's Mr. Armstrong.
Andrew, you can maybe update us on what's happening first, please.
Certainly. So a minor variance has been submitted for this property, which is zoned residential zone and is developed with a single detached dwelling. The existing dwelling has a large setback from Highway 62, Highway 62 being on the right-hand side here. The applicant requests permission to permit an accessory building in the front yard with a setback of about just over 50 meters. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so this is a very large lot. And so they're just putting an accessory building to the side from where the main house is. Okay. Is Mr. Armstrong joined us?
I'm here.
Okay. Do you have any additional questions, comments, concerns?
No, everything's, I think, pretty laid out, straightforward.
So this is a building, a garage or storage or whatever?
Just strictly short storage. You can't get like a car in it or anything like that. Just
okay.
Junk.
Okay. All righty. Any questions for Mr. Armstrong? If not, then we have motion by Sue to approve, seconded by Robert. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Okay, our next order of business is the confirmation of the minutes of January the 20th, 22. And any questions, comments, concerns about them? If not, approval by Sue, seconded by Robert. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, there's an update on a minor variance application for Holman Road. So I don't know if Andrew or Greg wants to give us the information on that, but you can proceed now.
I'll take it away. So last year, about June, you guys had received an application A2221 for 431B Holman Road. It is zoned rural residential and hazard and is developed with a single detached dwelling, as well as a garage that was recently rebuilt. The rebuilt garage contains a additional height as well as a coach house. And the minor variance application was to request to recognize the location and height of the building. Prior to the committee making a decision, we received correspondence from the conservation that they to defer the application. So on June 17th, 2021, the Committee of Adjustment received the report from staff and made the decision to defer it. Earlier in January, on the 31st, the owner confirmed that they were working with the consultant on a report to Quinte Conservation, and the conservation is aware of their situation and is awaiting their submission of the report. The last update I've had is that they were arranging with delivering the report to the conservation, but at this time, the conservation hasn't submitted any additional information in terms of their stance on the application. At this point, the report is just an information report, which means I have not recommended for or against it in particular. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. So the report I read somewhere that they expected it to be sent in late February or completed by then. So we
mid-February, where we're at right now.
So. Yeah, so we may see this on our agenda for next month if the report's in and all the ducks.
Yes, through to the committee. Our admin and myself, we've been in contact with him, and we've told him that we have a deadline for reports. So this is why the report doesn't mention our recent correspondence. So we've given him a soft deadline in terms of when we expect to get the information so that the report can be written for the agenda on time.
Okay, so we may see this March 17th then. Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Andrew regarding that property? I'm sure we'll get more information before our next meeting. Okay, other business. Just one comment. I know that most of us went in before Christmas and signed all the decisions. So if anybody hasn't signed yet, please contact Sue and do so. And otherwise, we will wait until probably March or April to do the one since then. So just a comment. Bill, you had a question.
Yeah, through you, the chair. I just wondered, did you need a motion to receive that report from Andrew? And if you did, I'll make the motion.
Yeah, we'll have a motion to receive that for the time being. So you make that motion, seconded by Sue, and then all in favor of receiving that. Thank you. Okay, is there any other correspondence, Andrew, Greg? No? Okay. Our next meeting is March 17th at 3:30, and it will be just a committee of adjustment meeting. At this point, we don't know if there's any property standard issue or whatever, so we will wait for the information on that. So is there any other further questions, comments, concerns before we adjourn? If not, adjourn by Robert, second by Sue.